rest assured that I'm not from Bangalore. This is my first time here and actually my first time in India. It's been a revelation. What I wanted to do today is maybe talk a little bit about context. I am, in fact, a CXO, and I've been with EPAM for over 20 years. We've been building software and transforming companies for all this time. Before then, I was actually a consultant, and before then, I was an investor, and before that, I was an activist. My original aspirations were to be a politician, and so here I am again trying to be a politician. What I wanted to do today is talk to you about sort of the context for the enterprise and also the context for the developer experience. And why it matters is really to answer the question of why. I mean, there's a lot of conversation about what Gen AI means, what all this change means. I want to talk about what it feels like and what it might ultimately bring for us in the future as not just enterprises or individuals, but as really humanity. To me, it feels right now like we're looking outside in, trying to clean up a view of an emerging technology landscape that is accelerating in real time. And every time we clean a pane, a new pane appears, and it still feels like an outside-in view. And maybe you feel the same way. I wanted to do two things. You can advance the slide for me if you don't mind. I wanted to share something with you about the context. Can you click? Thank you. I know you probably can't read this, and I'm happy to share the slides after, now that I realize it's so small. But what this is a timeline of technological change. And the circle represents 10,000 years. The lines represent 1,000 years. And then the hashtags on the line going up represent hundreds of years. So what you can see is it took us something like 40,000 years to get to the point of fire and actually cooking our food. It took us several thousand years, 10,000 years, to build basic technology. And it's taken us about 1,000 years to get to the point from really basic agrarian societies to the steam locomotive. And what you can really tell from this curve is that the pace of technological change is accelerating exponentially. Actually, it's accelerating logarithmically. What this means is that no matter what anybody tells you about the future, the truth is we don't know. We know it's changing very quickly, and the call for adaptiveness and our ability to change with it is accelerating exponentially. It's exciting because the future of technology brings with it potentially a singularity, if you're into that kind of thing. Potentially, it brings escape velocity, where humans can live way beyond our natural lifespan. And it also brings a tremendous amount of disruption. And so the question existentially is it disruption or is it opportunity? My argument for the context is that it's both. For the enterprise, it's actually both as well. And so if you can advance the slide for me once more, this is really kind of a typical hype cycle. This is what our friends at, I think, Gartner talk about on a regular basis. And from the enterprise point of view, if you think of an enterprise as an organism, there's always going to be a curve, right? So you're going to have kind of an innovator set, you're going to have an early adopter set, you're going to have kind of the main swell of the adoption curve. And these are all companies that are looking to either get ahead or stay ahead, or in some cases, both. And the curve matters because regardless of our ability to forecast the future, which I would say is somewhat limited, if not non-existent, there is a critical mass of adoption that changes the entire context for the industry. And why that matters for the enterprise is that it doesn't just change the business process, it changes the business model. And that's a crucial understanding that we have to develop. And the same is true, so this is looking outside in. The same is true as looking inside out, and I'll talk about sort of what we think about the developer's point of view, what it means for the experience and how it's changing a little bit later. But I wanted to share this because the impact of the adoption of all kinds of technology, including generative AI, depends on where you fall on this continuum. So are you an early adopter? Are you a laggard? Are you going to be someone who fundamentally says, oh no, it's not for me, I'm going to wait? It's actually going to change what happens to your business and collectively what's going to happen to kind of our industries, verticals, and societies at large. Could you click one more? So where we are today, I mean, this is a data summit and I'm a data nerd. Where we are today is really kind of the impact of AI in general and generative AI specifically is limited to kind of 3 categories. If you're someone who works with data, you're familiar with general AI, you're familiar with machine learning, you understand that there is a lot of value to be derived from better reporting. I mean, fundamentally, dashboards that tell you more things about more important elements of your business or your strategy. So you're looking at structured data and you're working on automation. And I would argue the vast majority of companies today are still really busy trying to solve the automation problems, structuring their data, understanding how to do things better. The second opportunity is Gen AI as an interface. So we just saw that a few minutes ago, and there are plenty of options for Gen AI as an interface. I would argue they're cute, but maybe not all that transformational quite yet. They are adorable, though. I'm with that. The third is really Gen AI as an agent, and we're starting to kind of see the pathway of agents collaborating across a fairly significant range of tasks. So you can think of hundreds of use cases. So we at EPAM work with mostly large enterprises, and there's something like 500 different use cases that we're working on where Gen AI is a critical component of blending kind of a human process with an automated process. So you can think of call center, you can think of all kinds of service agents, you can think of automations of any kind in any kind of process, including automations in the craft of engineering. But so this is really today's context. And the real challenge and the opportunity as you move along the continuum curve of value is to understand how to work with unstructured data and to bring that work into kind of a formulation of new ways of working and fundamentally new business models. Really, this is where the outside-in view from the enterprise in and the inside view from the developer out kind of come together in sort of the pilot. I think this model over the next few years is actually going to change because the Gen AI as an agent will help us to discover really what the future looks like. Today we don't know. We say we know, but we really don't have any idea. We're still in pilot stages to a large extent. So can you click one more? So again, sorry for how small this text is. We're happy to share this slide with you if you're interested, but this is sort of the dimensions of change inside the enterprise. And again, I spend a lot of my time in boardrooms working with clients, as well with our board, understanding, okay, what does all of this mean for the company? And again, think of the company as an organism. It means we need to concern ourselves with the impact on people and skills, first and foremost. And it isn't just about whether you can do automated coding. It's about the entire skills matrix, individually, from a team's perspective and from an entire organizational perspective. What does this mean for how we develop our products and services? What is the next generation of products and services? What even is a service if it's all driven by agents? What does this mean for how we build processes inside the company? Today, largely, processes, the kind of nirvana state of processes is some level of automation. Tomorrow, maybe the processes don't involve humans at all. And maybe that's not such a bad idea, but we still have to have this whole adoption curve of discovery to understand and map out next generation processes. Operations and infrastructure. It's somewhat of a boring topic, I think, for most people, but actually this is crucial. What is infrastructure in a world that is at least partially, and if not significantly, driven by agents and AI? What does that even mean from a modern enterprise perspective? Operating model, and I mentioned this early on. I mean, ultimately, businesses exist to thrive, to compete, and fundamentally to win. What are the new operating models, and fundamentally, what are the new economics in a world where AI is a material influence? And finally, how do we collaborate? I mean, internally in the enterprise, but also externally. What does this mean for how we partner? What is even the meaning of competition? And what is the definition of an ecosystem? So these are all kind of the dimensions of disruption, but they're also the dimensions of opportunity. And again, I know many people here are developers. From my point of view, if I could tell you something as an executive, is you should be thinking bigger. Think context, because it really matters. It's not just how the journey is constructed, it's really the destination that matters most. Okay, so one more. Again, sorry for the eye chart. So I want to kind of start to talk a little bit about the impact on the developer experience. And of course, the developer exists in the context of a team, in the context of a remit. In other words, you have a job to do, or a program, or a product, or a platform to build. Exists in the broader context of the enterprise, in the broader context of an industry ecosystem, in the broader context of society. So kind of from the outside in, now we're looking inside out. So when we, as a product and platform engineering company, started to kind of decompose the problem, looking at the world from an engineer's point of view, these are sort of the dimensions of change. How do we change our company? So this is Gen AI at EPAM. There's a whole program going on, and a lot is happening. How do we think about Gen AI for engineering and how it's changing the craft of engineering and the ways teams perform, and ultimately how products and platforms get delivered and deployed? And then how does it actually impact our ability to change the domains? So domains could be anything from a horizontal domain, like field service, to a vertical domain. How do we transform the insurance industry as it pertains to something like underwriting and claims, or something else like it? So this is sort of our construct, right? The mental model, if you will. One more? Can you click one more? All right, so the key engineering use cases was a remit that we gave to our global engineering team. So EPAM's got about 52,000 people working across 50 countries, most of whom are in one way or another busy doing engineering work. And so what we said to them is, hey, you know what? We've got AI, we've got Gen AI, you've got a complete access to any tool you want. In fact, some tools we had access to several years ago, so we've been at it for about 3 years. In terms of code productivity and looking at what is possible from the standpoint of driving better outcomes for engineering teams. And so, again, this is a mental model, a decomposition. And so our expectations were productivity increases and improvements across multiple dimensions of the engineering workflow. So component generation, test creation, algorithm development, data generation, including really interesting things like developing synthetic data. Everything on the left had a target number associated with it, because you would want that. Everything in the middle were explorations, like how can we do a better job of explaining code? Everything on the right was, we just don't know. I mean, can we change the entire DevOps process and workflow using generative AI? And I mean, I'm gonna kind of let you in on a little secret. We're still figuring it out, but I thought I would share with you where we got to, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. So please, can you click one more? So our hypothesis, and again, this is a busy chart. For those of you who are not engineers, this probably doesn't make any sense, which is fine, I'll explain it. So our thought is, okay, let's start with first, boosting individual productivity across the engineering kind of spectrum, across the parts and pieces of the engineering workflow. We thought it would take, ideally, 14 days, and we would optimize each individual step using a variety of tools. And in this deck, we have kind of which tools we're using. I would argue right now that the tooling doesn't really matter all that much. The tools are coming at us fast and furiously, and over the next 6 months, we'll probably see dozens of new tools coming at us. The question is, what does it mean? And so we started kind of experimenting with collapsing the time frames and driving those productivity metrics that I shared with you on the previous slide. So click one more. What we discovered was that it wasn't actually all that useful to take the existing SDLC and optimize individual task performance or productivity. In fact, what we discovered is that the change was in the collaboration, in the way engineering work was done. And I think this is interesting. If you're an engineer, it's not just about learning how to work with AI. It's about learning how to work with people who are working with AI, right? It's a huge difference. It's not about your individual productivity. It's about the ability of teams to become higher performing teams using AI across the entire software development lifecycle. So what we discovered was that things we thought were going to go better didn't go that much better. I mean, you got some productivity gains. But things that we didn't understand were going to happen, including entire tasks dropping off the front end, and our ability to just say, whatever, let's just go with it, was what drove the productivity. So you went from a cycle of 14 days, in a stream, to 7 days. And that's a massive improvement. But the improvement isn't individual. The improvement is process. It's ways of working for engineering teams. And this is what we're in the midst of learning this. Hopefully you guys are experimenting as well. And I think this is really the beginning of the transformation. It's nowhere near even the middle of the beginning. It's in the beginning of the beginning. And I think the opportunity for engineers is to actually push the boundary of the ways we work. One more, please. So then we sort of zoomed out. So that was kind of a zoom in. How do we change the craft of engineering? How do we change the performance of teams? How do we think about breaking and reassembling the SDLC, the software development lifecycle? Again, a bit busy, and apologies for this. We think of the SDLC in terms of waves of change. And I mean, back to my original technological change slide, I don't think we have 10,000 years to figure out. We maybe have a couple of years to figure it out. But these are the general waves. So wave one is humans with co-pilots. This is where we are today. It's very exciting, and it's cute. I mean, from my point of view, it's cute. It's not transformative yet, but it will be. The second wave is humans with agents. And you could argue that depending on the industry that you serve, you're already there. So you can call up any number of really progressive retailers and talk to a customer service agent, and you won't tell the difference whether you're talking to a human being or to an AI agent. Soon, it'll be so ubiquitous, we won't be able to know the difference unless we demand to know the difference, which is a whole other conversation and a whole other topic for discussion. Wave three is actually going to be a very subtle but a pivotal flip, where it isn't going to be humans with agents who help humans do their tasks. It's going to be agents with humans, where humans are assisting agents with their tasks. This is the big, I mean, if you're a fan of the notion of the singularity, this is the singularity. And then ultimately, you get into kind of out there Star Trek land where, you've got agents doing autonomous tasks. And then the question is, what is it all for? And again, that's more of an existential question and a topic for another conversation. So we're somewhere here. We're in the middle between, really kind of in the mid of wave two. Again, why does this matter from an engineer's perspective is because it really matters not only what you're doing today, but where you're going and why you're going there. At least that's my argument to you. Can you click one more? Okay, so this is really busy, and I just wanted to kind of show you, it's a complete stream of consciousness looking at the world of engineering productivity from an organizational perspective. We said to our engineering teams, do whatever you want, help us figure it out, and do it all at the same time. So it's not a sequential kind of figuring it out process. It's, hey, testing team, go figure out how to do testing tools that fundamentally change the way you run testing. Hey, guys who are working on pilots or the fit and finish of an application, go develop your own toolkits. Use the co-pilots available. Use any co-pilots, open source, proprietary. Connect to any LLM you want, including your proprietary one, including public LLMs. And then we built a solution called Dial, which is actually open source, so it's available for the world, to actually connect all the dots and actually give us a workbench where we can orchestrate all of these different experiments and start figuring it out holistically. So click one more. Why are we doing this? And why am I here in India talking about this? I mean, again, context really matters. So for us, India, EPAM is historically a company that sort of with roots in Central and Eastern Europe. For us, India was a location we wanted to develop over the course of 10 years, really using the opportunity to figure out how India is going to play in the broader global ecosystem. Over the last few years, we decided that India is strategic for us and pivotal. And then people said, well, what do you guys want in India? You're not a traditional Indian company. Why are you here? And what we wanted, actually, we put on big billboards all over cities in India. We want to be the home of modern engineering. And what that means is back to the story I just told you, which is it isn't just enough to be great engineers. You have to be engineers who are curious, who are really pushing the boundaries of modern engineering in the most important ways. And of course, Gen AI is really the impetus for this. So click one more. And we ran a survey not too long ago across the board of our own engineering teams. And again, 50,000 people, we have close to 8,000 in India now, so it's a fairly significant set of people asking engineers, well, what do you expect and what do you want from AI adoption, and how do you expect this to change the job? And so, people generally are two minds. One is there's extreme optimism for career growth and progression, and really this modern engineering moniker, if you will, to drive value for the individual. That's hugely important. This is what we're all here for. It's also a source of fear. People aren't sure what the adoption of generative AI by organizations is going to bring. And I think that's important. You have to understand you're always working with the opportunity and the threat at the same time. People are really looking for organizations, us specifically, but I would argue all of our organizations, to provide a construct, a reason for being, and a pathway for learning AI capabilities and continuous learning over time so that humans can do the best we can to keep up with the machines and the agents. And people are expecting organizations to create an environment where AI drives better collaboration. This is hugely important as a finding. It's not just about being better engineers. It's about better people, better teams, better collaborators that drive better outcomes. One more slide. Just some more findings. Generally, when we asked how are we doing on upskilling and training everybody, the feedback was like, you guys could be doing better. We need more. We need a reason and we need a vector so that our learning can take shape toward a purpose. Products, platforms, solutions, business models. This is where the engineers experience and the enterprise adoption experience, they come together. And then finally, people expect organizations to continue to be human-centric. I mean, we talk a lot, kind of generally as an industry, about responsible AI. And I think that there's an element of this responsible AI mandate that lands directly on the desk of the engineer. It is absolutely imperative that not only do we develop software with the notion of security and responsible use of artificial intelligence, it's also beholden on the organizations, on enterprises, to develop AI responsibly so that we bring people along. Otherwise, what is it for? One more slide. I'm kind of getting to the end, my point. AI is transformative. It is scary. It has the potential to take over. It really does. And anyone who doesn't believe that, doesn't believe that there's a real threat as well as a real opportunity isn't really paying attention, I would argue. So our vector, our ability to understand artificial intelligence, depends on our ability to create solutions and systems with a purpose. So we can have a runaway AI where everything becomes AI and humans become somewhat tangential. Those are the waves I shared with you. Or if we think about it in a very mindful way, looking inside out and outside in, one more slide, please, the opportunity, and again, all along with disruption, can you click one more? Is to do amazing things for human beings, right? To use artificial intelligence to change the future of transportation. And we're already doing that. I think all of us are engaged in one way or another in an industry that is changing with AI to completely transform experiences in ways that we can't even conceive. To change the nature of industry, right? I mean, so this is what responsible AI is. It's not just about data security. It's not just about privacy. It's not about bringing people along. It's changing kind of the very nature of our societies and to actually push the envelope so that we can go back to that, to the technology curve I showed you and accelerate toward the better futures of human beings. So that's my talk. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.